Hello and welcome to the show Earth to the Other Side. My name is John Glasspool, your host. Tonight my guest is Dr. Allison Snowden. Allison had a near-death experience back in 1999 in Cancun, Mexico, where she was also assaulted. Her passion and drive for holistic medicine is really anchored in her own transformation from her near-death experience. Thank you for tuning in, and I hope you enjoy the show. Allison, thank you so much for being here. Welcome to the show. How are you tonight?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for inviting me to speak about my near-death experience, spiritual awakening. It's one of my most favorite topics to talk about.
Wonderful. So happy that you agreed to do it. You want to just jump right into it?
Yes, my near-death experience, I say it, my death experience because I did die. So it wasn't near it. I was dead. So my death experience was March 29th, 1999 in Cancun, Mexico. One of the reasons why it happened is I really prayed for it. My older sister had cancer when I was younger. So I saw a lot of suffering. I saw a lot of pain, a lot of innocent kids being hurt, dying, going to funerals. And then my cousin died in a car accident. So I was thinking, was he in pain? He was alone. There was a lot of death around. And so that triggered in me this deep desire to understand what life is about. Also to understand what happens, when you die. I grew up in a Catholic family, but I always felt just a connection with everything. I didn't feel religious, but I just had this spiritual drive within me for as long as I can remember. But when that happened, that just triggered something in me. And I just started praying to God, show me the answer, show me what life is about, why we struggle, what happens after death. So it was like a mini or a rather large existential crisis that I was having. It was a month before my 16th birthday. And we went to Cancun, Mexico for spring break. My near-death experience happened. We were out, I think it was the fourth night. I lost my friend at a club. I decided to go off on my own, but I just panicked because I couldn't find my friend that I was responsible for. And so I walked out and I was walking by myself. There was several men that were following me. And so I started to run. And the next thing I know, it was just black, like black consciousness. I woke up and I was being sexually assaulted. I was conscious then and I fought, and then all of a sudden it went black again. My consciousness went black. The next thing I know, I'm out of my body and I'm looking down at my body and there's just full of blood. At this moment, I go up and I'm looking down and I was pretty high up. And so pretty removed from the trauma of my death. I was in the street. My first reaction was, oh, I'm dead. And I was like, oh, darn, I really liked that body. And the other thing that came to me right then was like, that's not me. I don't know, our culture, we identify with our bodies so much. I looked at it like my human suit, my a blonde, 5'10" body. And I was like, that's not me. There was all of the drama that was going on with surrounding, my body that was going on below. But I really wasn't paying attention to it because I was in this unconditional love that was the most amazing feeling ever. And my death experience, there was no visual component. So it was just all feeling, and there was no angels, there was no, it was very impersonal, but it was very loving. And there was all these different, this big, just unconditional love energy. There's all of these things that came to me, just awakenings, downloads. I was having conversations. I wondered, is this myself I'm having a conversation with, or is it with God, or is it with, and it was like, it doesn't matter. We're all one. So it was just this sea of just unconditional love. And there was other consciousnesses in there. Some were not awake or aware, and it was in between lives. I felt at home. And I remembered, I say that a lot. We remember because all of us, if you haven't had a death experience, we all have come from that source. Everyone who's listening has been in that space and that vibration. It felt like I was up there for forever because it's timeless. I instantly knew of past lives. I never was exposed to that in a Catholic household and never was exposed to the idea of reincarnation. However, I just knew. And it was really interesting because there was a category where there were all of my past lives I could tap into. And it just felt like a whole huge library of information, and everything that I ever thought, did, or any lifetime, that was all recorded. So it's this instant knowing that everything is recorded. And we study that and we learn that in between lives. Then I remembered why I chose, my particular parents. I call it like amnesia. When we're born into our human body, we forget a lot of this stuff. But just because we consciously don't remember it doesn't mean that our soul or our higher self, it always has access to it.
Well, I think we at one point did remember probably a skeletal version of it when we were younger, like under the age of 5, probably. Maybe not everyone. I know I did. I'm pretty sure you did. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but you probably have some sort of scattered memories. Maybe not now, but now you could probably remember the notion of having those memories when you were a child. But I still remember them specifically because I've always been obsessed with that kind of stuff since a very, very, well, since as far back as I can remember. So, but I'm sure all of us at some point, like when we're young, maybe we don't even question what they are, but they're still memories of something not from this lifetime, you know?
I remember a distinct memory when I think it was around when I was 7, where I was looking at my reflection and I was just eye gazing. I was looking into my eyes and I was like, who am I? And I kept on asking, who am I? And I was just gazing into my eyes. And at that moment, I knew I was so much more than, a 7-year-old in a body named Allison Snowden. And there is just this vastness of something that, I knew I was more than that and connected to something more. So I think it's interesting what we come through with, the gifts or the things that we gravitate to even when we were younger.
I remember being on my back, like on the bunk bed of at our cottage growing up and when we were really young, and just lying there, and I was looking up, imagining just the galaxy and stars and what was beyond that and what was beyond that, and I kept feeling like there has to be something further, even further, like is like home, like I always had that feeling like that's where we must be from. I was probably around 6 or 7 years old when this happened, like quite a few times, like every time at my cottage, like it was in the country. So I think the nature might have had something to do
Sure.
with, provoking these kind of things. And like, really, who am I? That's
Yeah.
really
And
cool.
there's so many labels. And I think with my sister having and being around people who had passed away at such a young age, and being around funerals, I was like, well, where do they go? Someone will say something, or my parents were like, well, heaven. And I was like, that's not good enough. Like, I wanted to really, really know,
Yeah, you had
really know.
questions. Yeah.
I had questions, and it's like, why is there suffering? A lot of people ask me when they hear that I had a near death experience, why is there suffering? All of these things, why would God let that happen? I've always just said that creation, that divine frequency is such an unconditional love. It is the most benevolent, but the most powerful presence. And it's a part of us, but it's also bigger than us. We're all connected. God does not direct. We have free will, we have sovereignty. We are our own consciousness here to experience, grow, learn, remember things. And that's different for everyone on why we incarnate. The whole storyline of God punishing is completely fake. I kind of, when I was in that space, it was timeless. Some people are like, well, how long? I don't know how long I was out for. Some people, like, they want to know, like, was I really dead? And I tell people that, yeah, I was really dead. They arrested a guy for killing me. So he was put in jail at the scene of the trauma. I remember waking up in the ambulance. But there was a knowing that at the end of your life, or even, I mean, I wasn't at the end of my life, but you get to feel and review, what actions you did in your life. So the judgment is not coming from that divine loving space. If there's any like understanding, it's coming from yourself. You literally get to feel what you gave out to the world. I didn't have a life review because I was so young. But there was this knowing that this recording was always going on. So for me, that really gave me a sense, and still gives me a sense of peace, because maybe you have certain intentions or there was misunderstandings. However, when you go up to that space, the truth is always revealed. But when you're on that plane, you can really, your true heart, your intentions, all of that's recorded. So no one can really like outsmart the universe. Some people have asked me about that with, like, people who do horrible things or murder people. And I'm like, well, they will get to see and review what happened. But we're all on this learning and growing path. And one of the things that right before I went back, I decided to go back, because I was in this space and all of these things were being downloaded to me. And there's a point where I decided to go back. It was almost this remembering that part of my mission was to experience this and then come back and share it with people. When you decide, it's like lightning speed. You go, that divine consciousness told me, bring this love to earth. Pull it into Mother Earth. And I can remember being like, what? How am I going to do that?
But just exploring the topic of consciousness, like I sometimes, like my take on it is this, we sit down with our guides and some probably higher up supreme beings, and basically presented, or maybe we chose a few options, but we're presented with a few options of lives to go and explore on earth, right, for the purpose of learning and evolving our souls. And there's pretty much one primary emotion that happens on that side, and that's love, right? If I'm not mistaken, it's pretty much love.
So only love.
So we come here to experience things of physical related nature, including emotional. And it's a very popular place. We had to probably wait quite a while before even being granted the opportunity to come here, with the other 200 billion places that we could go and visit to also evolve our souls, right? We choose that life. Unfortunately, the veil and the memories of everything are gone. But I mean, it makes perfect sense when you think about it, because it would kind of defeat the purpose if you knew everything about why you came and where you came from. Like, what I mean? Why would you even bother? Just snap your fingers and go back, right? So
exactly. It's something that has been around and has been talked about, this oneness. It is both. It is all of it. And I think in my journey with the integration, because I had a ton of trauma in my awakening, and my love and all of that was in the context of violence, and a lot of trauma. And I was in the hospital for 2.5 years. So getting surgeries and my bones weren't healing. I was sitting in the hospital bed. It was constant pain. I didn't have any. So I want to share with your audience, any parent, any friend that lost a child or a loved one in a trauma where there'd be an enormous amount of pain, where it was very violent or brutal. Don't worry, they did not feel it, because I did not feel it. And the experience was very quick and fast. And I always tell people I loved dying. I loved it. Dying was like coming home to love. It was fabulous, honestly. Coming back down into a body that is in a lot of pain now, that was kind of hell for me. So after that, from then on, I had openings and this constant communication with the divine. I can remember lying in my hospital bed and I had just my whole left side was broken and my bones were really crushed and I was in so much pain. And I was just communicating. I was like, can I go back? And they're like, nope. They're like, you made the choice. And I was like, darn. They're like, it's going to be a hard road. And I was like, oh, I had buyer's remorse for deciding to come back. I knew that this was going to be a part of my dharma, my life path of really going into healing. So an ability to connect with that consciousness and with that divine aspect of us while we're embodied. I really think that awakening and ascension and the spiritual awakening of the individual and of us globally is ascending, understanding that loving energy and that quantum aspect of ourselves, but then also embodying in the human body and having that knowledge, creating more love here on the planet. Not like, to ascend and just to go up into the ethers and never come back, really embracing our humanness, our tenderness, our emotions, because that is also a part of who we are in this moment, in this body. I think sometimes I wanted to not feel my emotions or not to go through and heal the emotional aspect of what happened to me, and just be, connected to that love. But that is the process of really applying that consciousness and healing on that level. But the cool thing is that there is a lot of trauma and pain, but then also there's so much love and expansion. And on this level, they're a part of the same force.
I mean, some people disagree about the whole free will thing. Some people think it's sort of an illusion of free will. I don't think so. I think we have free will. I think it's all part of the experience that we do suffer. Some people suffer more than others. But like I mentioned earlier, I think it's all part of like what we agree to. You'd mentioned about finding out why you chose your parents. I'm very curious about hearing more about that if you want to share it.
Yeah. So my parents, very loving people, very grounded people. So what I discovered when I was on that level, I chose them because they were very grounded, ethical people. And I needed, I guess that's something I needed. And my parents aren't into consciousness. They're not into, near-death experiences. They're not into all that is, but they are very ethical, grounding, and, Midwestern parents. So I had some past lives with them too. I think there's so many things that we don't see until we're ready to open and we want to see. And I think with free will, yes, I believe in it. I guess I could debate that because I love with neuroscience and, different things like that. You could debate it, but I really chose to be born. I know we all chose to be born. I chose to have this experience. Now, does that mean that I was happy with my choice? Sometimes I was like, why did I do this to myself? Like, why did I sign up for this? Some of that's my ego. Some of that's like my inner child. And then when I can really connect to that frequency, I can really get my answers. If you're persistent and you want to know, you can know. That divine frequency and that force knows when we're ready to know things. Everyone is so important and is so loved. There is this very strong voice that was like, it doesn't matter. So this would be what one of the main takeaways that was very much impressed on me when I was in that space, this voice said, the things that, people think matter, they don't. What happens after you're in that space is how much did you love yourself and love others and fulfilled your purpose. And really everyone is so important and precious to that divine consciousness.
It's really not about the money that we made, the car that we had, and the companies that we owned. It was really the little things, the random acts of kindness, the love that you projected on others, and mainly love and the connections that we make while we're here. I think that leaving this space is going to be what's most important to us.
When I was up in that sacred space and I looked into the men who did that to me, they weren't very conscious. I mean, that's like the basic way to put it. Anyone who violates another person or does harm to another person is not highly conscious of other people, and they themselves have probably been treated that way themselves and are operating on that. I knew I was going to heal because of my near-death experience and because of that connection with that power that we get exposed to. I can't even describe in words how overwhelming and how powerful it is. And the other thing that was imprinted on me very strong was how powerful love is.
That's why I think meditation is so, so, so key. And I wish they would, I mean, they are starting to now, but I wish they would be more broad about this and serious about it, about teaching meditation in schools, like at an early age. Why would we not be doing this? Especially, I mean, in the 21st century, why would we not be instilling the practice of meditation on our kids at, even at the like kindergarten level?
We need to learn how to train our brain and really connect and to, get into that soft regulated nervous system space. And I completely agree. The research on meditation is piled up. There doesn't really need to be any more. You can really rewire how your brain interprets what is coming at it, and it can really solve a lot of problems.
Put it in there like geography, gym, art and music, science, meditation. Make it the first thing they do in the morning when they get to school, because that could be life changing. If we did that right now, I think that would be a very positive force moving forward. That's just my take on it.
I always share my experience as an invitation to go and look within your own self, and have your spiritual awakening, because I'm not special. You're just as able to do this, and you can do it intentionally. You don't have to do it through trauma. You can do it through healing classes, meditation, yoga, even just seeking, having that heart desire, and it will be brought to you. Emotions, understanding emotions, being able to regulate your nervous system, that practice of mindfulness, that is such an important skill set for kids to have. So, I think we have to start training that. When you go through a spiritual awakening and you go through this expansion of consciousness, there's a lot of things that happen there. Your whole identity gets just kind of blown up. And you have, feelings and sensations, very sensitive to energy, just different knowings. And, it can be kind of overwhelming. And, you think that maybe you're going a little bit crazy, but not to tell, the doctor that, because they probably think that you would be going crazy,
You hit it on the nail with the going crazy thing. Oh yeah. And I mean, walking into a room has never been the same, like everything about your life changes from that moment.
I have a really positive outlook. I feel like that, love and consciousness and awareness spreads. You can't contain it. As all of us become a little bit more mindful each day, little bit more aware, that spreads like wildfire. Like it's happening. And I feel like maybe you don't see it, but each little awakening that happens with different people affects everyone. You were talking about, it's really good for us to know that we are powerful, powerful spiritual beings. We are so powerful. And it's kind of that paradox where, we are, our identity is this power and this love, and we are born here into this physical body and we will die. Like, that's the interesting thing about it, is that I find actually pre-COVID, people just don't realize that their time on earth is limited and other people's time on earth is limited. I really feel like that just in the past couple of years, death has been more in the forefront of the collective. And so I feel like some people have been going through, probably some PTSD about it if they've never contemplated their own mortality. But the thing is that our spiritual consciousness never is born and is never dead. That never dies. What does die is our, body. So there really is no death. There's physical death. Yes, someone is here and then they're gone, and it can be very devastating and very difficult. However, they are not gone. And I'm like 100% certain on that. I view death and loss very differently because I've been to the other side and can connect to that and really understand with the different energies. So
how long after your NDE back in 1999 was it until you reconnected to that frequency, to that higher vibrational frequency?
I was channeling that stuff in the hospital. Like, I used it as a real coping mechanism. I had some really fun experiences, different frequencies helping me heal. I felt angels like working on my etheric field, and I was very aware. So it was a very interesting time because I was in a lot of pain, and pain has a way of really grounding you in the present moment. I would connect to that divine consciousness just when I was in the hospital and would just send myself light all the time. I started self-healing intuitively, just using my brain, sending my body unconditional love and light, and visualizing my bones healing and just streaming that and asking for support. So I used it a lot in healing. I don't feel like I've ever lost it. Since that.
Really getting into the space, that same feeling that you had of unconditional love, and that feeling of forgiveness and acceptance. And
when I talk about this with people, I'm like, I can send my consciousness somewhere, and scan, but I'm still connected to my body. There are 2 times since my near-death experience where I completely detached and was like flying around and saw certain, so it was an OBE. But I was like, wait, I could induce an out-of-body experience, or, that comes naturally to people who've had near-death experiences. And so part of my healing has been really bringing my consciousness into my body. And I have to do a daily yoga practice to really bring it into this, this human meat suit and keep it here and be present. I started self-healing, and then that's why I went through all the schooling and training I did, because I couldn't find someone that had all the answers. And so I was like, no one else is as invested in your healing. No practitioner is as invested in your healing as you are. And so I just had this drive. I could not live in pain and, in pain. So I did a lot of work on myself, did a lot of body work, did a lot of meditation, studied other energy healing modalities. So I just made it my career to heal and integrate. And one of the best thing about being a healer and doing this for a living is I get to connect to that consciousness, every time I am working with a client, and we just drop into that state, and I get to really help people heal and see, why they aren't healing, or what is going on. What is the emotional or the spiritual aspect of their disease or their anxiety or that type of thing. And that's really amazing because I can use my gifts to help others, and I get to call in that energy daily. So I get to just hang out in it.
Who experiences any sort of profound spiritual awakening or spiritual experience, whatever you want to call it, I think it's very humbling at the end of it all. It's quite a humbling experience because you sort of, you do lose a lot of your ego. And when that happens and you see others, you're no longer judging like you used to. You don't feel superior or inferior anymore. It's just like you don't really give a crap, and B,
Yeah.
you just know that we're all equal, and it doesn't even matter if they agree. You know what I mean? It's a whole new
No,
way of thinking that
it's
happens.
it's so interesting because it was funny. Like, I want to share with you, like, I think this is a really fun story to share, with the intelligence of our consciousness and of our soul. Like, I think our human brain can't even fathom the quantum, the amazing just intelligence of our soul and of our consciousness. So I didn't tell about my story until I actually blurted it out to another NDEer that I didn't know was an NDEer.
Oh,
Isn't that interesting? So
yeah.
I went, one of my sister's friends, when I was going through all my surgeries, took me to go see his horses. I was a huge horseback rider before all of my physical trauma. And so his uncle just happened to be there, and he was like, "Oh, Uncle so-and-so," I don't even remember his name. He's like, "Why are you here?" And it's like, "I just felt like I should, come here." And so I sat and I was just sitting with him for not even 10 seconds. And all of a sudden I just was like, I died. I saw my body. I was with this love, and I've been reincarnated. I believed in reincarnation. I just was spilling my guts, and my ego was like, don't tell him, and its consciousness is just blurting out. I'm like, this happened to me. And like, my ego's like, what are you doing? Stop, don't, they're going to think you're psycho weird, all of this. And he looks at me and he's like, that happened to me too. So he had, he was in a car accident when he was in his 20s, and he had like, he had more of a visual one. So it was a little bit different for him. But isn't that amazing that like my soul took over and was like, this girl needs to get this out, and she needs to know that this is okay. And the first person that I said it to was someone who had an experience.
That's
So
crazy.
I think we are so much more intelligent than we know, and our soul has such an intelligence to it. And that was so important for me because I really was holding it back. I was really holding it back. I was scared that people would, when you're a new near-death experiencer, and the first person that you tell thinks that you're crazy or that you made that up or something, that is horribly emotionally painful. So I
Oh,
can't
yeah.
even imagine. So
Especially when
luckily,
you know how real it was, right?
yeah, it's more real. I tell people that it is more real than this table, that reality and what happened. This is the dream. That's the more of the reality. This is more of the dream, if one is a dream.
Yeah, most definitely. And I can't speak for everyone out there, but for me, I mean, I had a horrible, horrible like fear of death, like so many others, probably from around like 18 to 25, something like that, with a few breaks in between. It's such a relief when that fear goes away. I think part of the fear for me at least was that it's, I guess, the unknown, or the fact that you just ceased to exist. That feeling of, ceasing to exist was very scary for me. And now that I realize that's a complete load of crap, you know, that's a huge that's a huge thing that's just alleviated, just taken right off your shoulders, you know, and it's freeing.
To be on this spiritual awakening path, you really have to hold your identity loose, because the more heart open and the willingness to learn and grow, you change, and
Mhm.
who you think you are. And a lot of people are very committed to staying who they are.
Which
Yeah.
is so true, right? Because we pile on this whole like years and years worth of crap that we call, you know, ourselves, which is our ego. And underneath all that, somewhere there is the original us, ourself, identity, you know, under there, our soul, if you will, you know.
Really, it's just, who are we at the end of the day? And we're something more than all of this, external stuff, or even our physical body. I mean, it's so like near deathers, it's so interesting once you have that experience of, just seeing how like you are not this body, and you just look at people so differently with having the spiritual awakening. You're like, wow, people don't really see you, they see their own projections of you, of who they think you are, or their own programming. It's interesting, I had these feelings of loneliness because I'm like, people don't really see me. I mean, the spiritual awakening is really about really knowing who you are, and not finding your identity through external things, other people, and really finding that within yourself.
Yeah, you're
Like,
looking at me, but you're not seeing me. Yeah, definitely. It still happens every day. I mean, there's it's yeah, 100%. Point you were out of your body, right? And you saw yourself, I
mhm.
guess on the ground. Were you
Yeah, I was on the ground.
on the side of the road or something? Yeah.
Yeah.
So at which point, I guess, did it go from that? And how was that transition from that to not being that to just feeling? Or were you always, while experiencing everything, looking at that while you were
Yeah.
getting your downloads
Oh,
and
so
seeing
it
your
was,
past lives?
so how like I always, like how I bring it down to earth for people is, how like you can have the TV on, but you're not really paying attention to it.
Hmm.
So that's how it was like with, my body and what was going on in the drama of, the ambulance coming in, and, all of the drama trauma that was going on. Like so it happened, and there was a moment where I was just, fighting, honestly. And then it went black, and I had black in consciousness, and then I went all the way up, and I was pretty high up, and I just saw my dead body just in blood. And then there was trying to get paramedics through. And I kind of was like, oh, wow, I'm dead. And I was like, oh, like it was almost like I kind of like took the TV and kind of like moved it over. And I was just, my attention was so just in the consciousness where I was at. Like the scene of the trauma was like right here. And then I like catapulted out of my body.
Hmm.
And I was pretty far up. I know there's some people that are just like hovering
Right.
around the scenes. I went like way up.
Okay.
So it was like a dimension that I went to. And so like when I decided to come back, like I was there, and then I was like, it's like so fast. You
And
just
did you
go,
feel like that at any point in time you could have just redirected your attention back to your body to see what was happening?
I
Or were
could
you in a
have,
new
yeah.
place, not going anywhere? Do you know what I mean?
Oh yeah. So I understand. So I was in that I could have watched what was going on, but I just didn't care. Like I kind of was like, oh, it's like it's down there, and I was in this beautiful, just just amazing, loving current, and I was just getting downloads. I was getting just all of this information, because the thing that happens is that when we are in out of our body, we're communicating not through our voice. Like it's just this information, because the thing that happens is that when we are in out of our body, we're communicating not through our voice. Like it's just instant communication, telepathic.
Mhm.
And so I was receiving different feelings, different information, like a lot of the stuff that we talked about. And I was not phased, like my soul. I mean, I just want to share, our souls aren't phased by anything. Like that consciousness, our soul is like, yep, I'm dead. This has
Yeah.
happened many times, like my soul didn't care.
Yeah.
Like it was
Been
like,
through that
okay,
before.
whatever, I've been here, done. Okay. I never asked why did this happen to me? There's probably a lot of trauma survivors that ask that, and they have a complete authority to ask that, and that's their story. But I never thought like, why did this happen? I was like, I know exactly why this happened. And at the end of the day, like even I had to spend a lot of time in pain and money and healing. However, what I got, I was like, wow, I I I I feel like I got so much from that. And it's such a part of my experience. Once your consciousness is stretched like that, you can't go back. Actually, you can try to, but you'll probably make yourself miserable. But once it's stretched, like that, it changes everything. A lot of near deathers have that. It's like spirituality. It's like love is the religion, love is it. And maybe we practice one thing or the other, but there is really we don't really, one is not better than the other. We're all a part of it.
Well, our friends, the hippies from the 60s were onto something, I think.
I know, right? Weren't they?
Yeah. When you were, I guess, just in between being there and coming back, did you have at any point like a realization that I need to go back, or did someone or a being tell you that, it wasn't your time to go back? What happened?
So I was like in that space, and I was just absorbing, like I was just filling up with just so much love and just connection. And then there was talking about life and all of these remembering things. And at one point it was, I remembered, it was like, you need to go back. And it was not even like, I feel like we have free will, we have choice. But for me, it was almost like I had made a contract or a promise that I would have this experience and go back. So there really wasn't a question. There wasn't a question in my mind that I wasn't going to go back. I knew I wasn't. I have talked to the man who I first talked to. He had a definite choice. Like you can stay or you can, like he had that choice. Mm-hmm. I feel like I already had made the decision before the experience that I was going back. And part of my message was to bring that consciousness into healing and into the world. So I really do feel like the whole thing, was beautifully orchestrated probably by my soul. What's the best way to learn about healing? To get hurt yourself. I definitely have learned a lot from my academic schooling, but I think the actual going through the experience, I feel like is so valuable. So I definitely appreciate that. I don't think I would want to go through it again.
No, but you did get some at least value from it, because it's something that you can feed off of and then throw on to others, like the healing aspect of it, right?
If I can help someone heal faster, if I can be a conduit for someone's healing, like I'm like game on, like all of that was worth it. We're all here to help each other, and feel really hopeful because the fact that we're having conversations like this and the fact that people are interested in this the interest of this has grown since, the 70s, since this information and this has a life of its own, that I mean, love is the only power. And that was really shown to me.
That's amazing. When you went back into your body, I know everybody has a different story about how they went back in. Some are just seamless transitions. Some are slammed back in. I remember either reading or seeing on YouTube, perhaps, a guy who was, well, he was explaining about how massive our souls are and our consciousness
Yeah.
is. And even just the thought of narrowing it down, squishing it into a small enough thing to get back into his body was inconceivable. How was it for you? How was it for you?
I instantly went in and I felt trapped in my body. I actually did a lot of healing work, because after having that experience of being so expansive, like you're like, oh my gosh, you feel claustrophobic in your body. It was very quick, and it, like, as soon as I thought I'm going back, I just went back.
A lot of what we're saying here might sound to some like we're glorifying the dying process and stuff, and it is. Let it be gloryful, is that a word, gloryful?
Yeah.
But what I wanted to say is that I know from my own experience that this is a state that anyone can attain without having to die, through meditation, through yoga, through many other channels, but especially just because I'm speaking from experience, especially with meditation, just about, anybody can do. It doesn't take a lot of time, and or it could take a lot of time if you're like me, who's completely obsessed and addicted to it.
Yeah.
But it's so freeing, and it can do so much wonder for anyone with anxiety, depression, fear of death. All these things. And I think meditation is one of those ways that is very effective and accessible to everybody. Well, I'm so glad that you decided to do this, because I know that there's a lot of things, a lot of points that will be so beneficial to other people watching it. So good.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Have a
Thank you,
beautiful night.
Allison. You too.
Great.
Wonderful talking to
Bye-bye.
you. Take care. Bye.